Hey everyone, and welcome to DSC 180A. In this quick video, what I want to do is walk you through some of the steps you learned about in Methodology Lesson 1 with regards to how to access DSMLP and run launch scripts. So again, DSMLP stands for Data Science and Machine Learning Platform, and it's UCSD's campus computing service. Now, you've actually kind of already used DSMLP before because DataHub, which you used in DSC 10 in some other courses, is actually based on DSMLP. The difference here, though, is that we're going to access DSMLP through the command line. So if you're using a Mac like I am, you're likely going to use the terminal app, though if you're on Windows, you might use PowerShell or an Anaconda prompt or something like that. Okay. And so the very first step, once you have your command prompt open, is you're going to SSH onto the jump box server. Okay, and the way you're going to do that is by writing the SSH command in your command prompt, followed by your UCSD email username, so mine's srompore, at dsmlp-login.ucsd.edu. And when you do that, what this is going to do is it's going to bring us to the jump box server. Now remember, the jump box server, it's kind of like the hotel lobby. It's just like the first place you go. You don't actually want to run any code there. Though it's worth pointing out here, if I use the ls command, which lists out all of the files in my current directory, it's actually going to show me all of the files that are on my DataHub, because DataHub and DSMLP actually use the same file server. Okay, so you can see everything that I've ever used on DataHub is right here. It's not very organized. I have things like DSC 10 from winter 2022 from when I taught it then, but whatever, that's not the point. Okay, I'll note that it didn't ask me for my password here because I've set up SSH keys, which are kind of like a way of saving my password for DSMLP, which is the same as my regular UCSD Active Directory password. It's like a way of saving that on my computer so I don't have to keep entering it in my terminal every time I want to use DSMLP. There's a link in the lesson on how to set up SSH keys, and I highly recommend you do that because you're going to be using DSMLP quite a bit in the capstone. Okay. Now that we're on the jump box server, we need to actually pick a server we want to use, and to do that, we're going to use a launch script. So for example, I can use launch-scipy-ml.sh, and we learned in the article that there are several flags you could use. Like for example, you could customize the number of CPU cores or the RAM or GPUs and all these other things. And what I want to emphasize here is you don't have to memorize all of the possible flags you could use when running a launch script, because if you use the -h flag, -h stands for help, it'll give you, and I can zoom out a little here, maybe make this bigger. It gives you a description of all of the possible flags you could use. Okay, one flag you should get in the habit of using, and I'm just going to use clear here just to save up some space. One flag you should get in the habit of using is -w DSC 180A FA23 AOO. And what this is going to do is it's going to ensure that once you launch the actual server you're trying to launch, you'll be able to access any section-specific files that your mentor set up or any course-specific files that, for example, I want to give to all students in DSC 180A. So -w stands for workspace, and we have a workspace for everyone in DSC 180A. So make sure to use that whenever you're logging on to DSMLP. Okay, or logging on to an actual server. For now, I could customize how many CPU cores and the RAM I want, but just to illustrate things, I'm not going to do that. And we'll talk more about how to use GPUs in particular in next week's lesson. For now, this will suffice, and it'll take a little bit of time because now it's got to actually spin up a pod. We'll talk about what pods are next week as well. But once this loads, this is where I can actually do my computation. Okay, you're not supposed to actually run anything on the jump box server. Now, if I type ls, you'll notice it doesn't have all of those files that I saw before. Instead, there's a private and a public folder. Ignore the DSC 10 thing. Okay, all of those files I saw in my jump box, those are actually in the private folder. Okay, so if I cd into the private folder, remember cd stands for change directory, and hit ls, I'll see all of those same files I saw before. So the files that are specific to me are in the private folder, and if there were any course-specific files, those would be in the public folder. Okay, I haven't distributed any of those yet, so there aren't any. Now, there's a way to launch your actual server and specify that you want to access your team specific folder. So like if I'm in domain A05, for example, there's a way that I could say, hey, show me the A05 specific folder as well, in addition to the public, mass DSC 180A folder. And I'll write a little bit about how to do that in the lesson. I'm not in a team because I'm not in a domain, so this username, srampore, is not going to show up as being in any teams, and so there's no use in me showing it to you in this video, but I'll write up how to do that in the lesson. Okay, so now that I'm on DSMLP and I've actually launched a server, now I can just, run code here, okay? And so two things I want to show you now are, one, how you copy files from your computer to DSMLP, and two, how you use a Jupyter notebook once you've logged on to DSMLP. And you're going to have to use a Jupyter notebook in methodology lesson 1, or just at least prove to us that you know how to open one. Okay, so as for copying files, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a new tab in my terminal, and I'm going to CD to the desktop on my computer. Notice here, this is saying that I'm on Suraj's MacBook Pro, whereas over here, this is something related to DSMLP. srampore is my DSMLP username. Okay, so here I'm on DSMLP, here I'm on my personal computer. What I'm going to do now is just create a few files that I want to transfer over to DSMLP because it's more powerful than my computer and I can let it run for hours and hours. You're going to need to do this somehow, right? You can transfer it the way I'm about to show you, or what you could do is just once you're on DSMLP, you could run git clone whatever your git repos username or URL is. That's something you're going to have to do in the methodology lesson as well, but it's useful to know both techniques. Okay. Let's create some files that we want to copy over. What I'm going to do actually is simulate an environment in which you have multiple files you want to copy over, and so I'm going to make a folder with those files. Okay, and I'm also going to use this as an opportunity to demonstrate some of the key command line commands you should get familiar with. Okay, so I'm going to start with make dir, mkdir, which stands for make directory or make folder, and I'm going to make a folder name like love data. I don't know, strange name, but whatever. We'll cd into love data, and what I'm going to do is make two text files. The way you make a file is by using the touch command. I'll say hey.txt, and then to open hey.txt, I'll use the vi command. That stands for vim. And now I've opened hey.txt. If I hit the I key, that stands for insert. You can see at the bottom of my terminal it says insert now. And I can say, hey, DSC 180A students, don't worry, this class has no exams. Whatever. And now to save, I'm going to hit the escape key and then :WQ. And what that's going to do is it's going to save and close hey.txt. So if I open log data, you can see everything I just wrote in the terminal. It's there. Hey, DSC 180A students, don't worry, this class has no exams. But if I want to see what's in that file without having to open it, I could just use cat, which is a command that shows you the contents of a text file. Okay, another way that I could make a text file and put text in it without actually having to open Vim is by using the echo command. So for example, I'll say echo, my name is King Triton. That's what I want to go in the file. I'm going to use the right arrow key, or the greater than sign, I guess, and then I'm going to pick a file name, call it triton.txt. And now, if I use the ls command, it shows me that it made a triton.txt, and in it, there's just the text, my name is King Triton. Okay, so now I have a folder called love data, and it has these two files in it. And what I want to do is transfer love data to DSMLP. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move one directory up, and I'm going to use the command zip. Okay, I'm going to use zip -r stands for recursive. It's saying zip up the folder I'm going to tell you about, as well as any subfolders it may have. Ours doesn't have any subfolders, but you could imagine a case where it does. I'm going to pick a name for the zip file. I'll call it toTransfer.zip. You can call it whatever you want. And then you have to put the directory that you want to zip up. So in this case, it's love data. Okay, and so now you can see on my desktop, it made a file called toTransfer.zip. And this is nice because now there's just a single file I need to copy over to my DSMLP. Now, how do I do that? Well, there, you're going to use the command scp. Okay, and this is like a combination of SSHing onto DSMLP and copying this file there. And so here's how it's going to work. I'm going to start by providing the source of, the starting location of the file I want to transfer, okay, or copy. And what I'm going to do after is provide the destination location. And so the destination location is srompory@dsmlplogin.ucsd.edu. And after that username, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a colon and then put what I want this file to be called on DSMLP. And if there's a specific path in there I want to store it, I'm also going to put that as well. So for now, we can just call it the same thing. I'll call it totransfer.zip. And now, if I didn't already have SSH keys set up, it would ask me for my password again, but since I do, it didn't ask for my password. Now if we go back to my private folder, notice in this tab, I was already logged into DSMLP. If I hit ls, somewhere in here, we're gonna find totransfer.zip. Notice I'm on DSMLP now, I'm not on my computer. And so if I wanna open that file, or open that zip file, or unzip it, I can use the unzip command. So I'll use unzip totransfer.zip. And now you'll see that it created this folder called love data, which I can see over here. Now, if I cd into love data, I can see my two files and they have the same text that they did when I created them on my computer. So that's like a concrete example of how you might transfer files from your computer to DSMLP and vice versa. All right, the last thing I need to show you how to do is how to access Jupyter notebooks through DSMLP. Now, a lot of the time you're not going to need to do this because you're just going to have some script that, trains a model or something that doesn't need to be run in a Jupyter notebook that you just want to be run on DSMLP for hours and hours. But there will be times where you want to use a Jupyter notebook with DSMLP, and in fact, methodology lesson 1 requires you to do this. So let me show you how it's done. Notice I kind of had to make a break in the video because it had some technical difficulties. So I'm going to have to re-SSH into DSMLP. So I'll show you how to do that now. Okay, so I'm going to SSH. This is going to bring me to the Jumpbox server. I need to run a launch script. I'll use scipyml again. Don't forget the W flag. There we go. And now we need to pay close attention because as it launches my actual server, it's going to give me a URL where I can try and find my Jupyter notebook. But you'll notice if I take this URL, this is the one I'm talking about, and try and open it in my web browser, it's not going to work. It's going to say dsmlplogin.ucsd.edu refuse to connect. Now there is a way to make this URL work, and to do that, what I would have to do is have the UCSD VPN running on my computer, which I don't currently have, and so we're going to have to use another technique called port forwarding or SSH tunneling. Essentially, we need to get this server running locally on our computer. So how do we do that? Well, there are some instructions in the methodology lesson if we scroll down. And essentially, when we dissect this URL, we'll notice that there are two pieces. There is a port, 12732, and a token. Those are the two pieces I need to be aware of. What I'm going to do now is open a new terminal window. Notice this one is on DSMLP, this one is on my personal computer. And what I'm going to do is follow the template that is outlined in the methodology lesson, where it's saying take, essentially, this port on DSMLP servers, 12732. Notice that number is coming from this URL. It might be different for you. It depends on the time of the day or some other thing. It might not be 12732 for you. It's saying take that port and forward it to 8889 on my computer. Okay. Now I got to replace user with srompory. Of course, you'll use your own email, and it's going to seem like nothing is happening, but that's actually expected behavior. Now I go to localhost 8889/user/ whatever it says here. I'm going to replace username with srompory. And now what it's going to do is it's going to ask me for a token. And that's where the token that was given to me in this URL comes into play. I'm going to copy that, enter that here, hit login. We don't really need to save that. And now you'll see that I have access to the same file directory that I had when I launched scipyml directly in my terminal. In my private folder, I have everything that's on my data hub. I have this public folder that doesn't currently have anything. I have the love data folder that we made earlier. It's all there. So now if I need to run a Jupyter notebook, I can do so. It says localhost, but it's not actually running on my computer. The compute that is being used, like the actual hardware that is being used, is whatever I specified when I launched my server on DSMLP. Okay, so that should give you a broad overview of how to use DSMLP, how to copy files there, how to use Jupyter notebooks there. Sorry. So that just about wraps up methodology lesson 1. But if you have any questions with it, feel free to post on Ed or come to office hours. And don't forget to complete methodology assignment 1 by the due date. Thanks for watching.